don't want to have too sappy of an introduction, but it should be said that video game art styles are something that are incredibly important. Sometimes when I buy a game, it feels like I'm purchasing a masterpiece because, frankly, a lot of games are just a work of art. And for Trix N Treaty, I wanted the sky to be something that was more than a background, something that the style could really resonate with players. And every time you would see the sun rise on a new day, it would be a completely memorable experience. So, oh no, the sky turned into Rex Rush 3D. Well, I don't know what that was about, but I fixed it. Anyways, I'm going to be talking about the sky and the UI in Trix N Treaty. But for those out of the loop or unaware, Trix N Treaty is my roguelite race against time, where you collect time-based abilities to get your stolen tournament ticket back before it's too late. I've been working on it in my free time for the past 3 years or so, and I'm hoping to get it done this year. I don't really know if that's crazy realistic, but I'll try my best. Trix N Treaty already had a sky and a UI in it, but I wanted to come back to these designs because I've learned a lot of art tricks since I previously made them. And while designing them, I did look at a GDC, or a Game Developers Conference, from a few years ago talking about UI design. For this video, I'm going to be talking about how I use some of the tricks from that in my own experience to make the game look better, but if you want to go look up more specific tips, I would check out the video in the description below. The previous sky for Trix N Treaty was just a rotating image, and that's about it. I kind of whooped it up pretty quickly, but if I have the opportunity to change it, I'm gonna do a lot. I think it's safe to say that the environment in a game can tell you a lot about its identity, and that games with the best art direction can be recognized just by the scenery without the characters in the UI. Not to say that those don't help the art direction, but it just shows how strong the environment can be. To make the new sky in Trix N Treaty look cooler, I wanted to add little texture type things, like little boxes, and a much more floaty gradient effect. I also wanted to make the sun and moon direct your eyes to the center of the screen where the player is, so it's more of a spectacle instead of a backdrop, without being too distracting while still getting just enough of your attention to look cool. More importantly though, the old sky had an issue where it would kind of blend too much of the game into the background. You can see that Trix's outline was pretty hard to see against the old sky, which is why when designing the new sky, I would actually take it into grayscale against a screenshot of the game so I could see if it was too dark or not. The one bit that I do miss from the old sky was that it was pretty easy to put in the game. This newer sky I'm having to draw frame by frame, and I only kind of have to do about a quarter of it because I'm keeping the sky the same between day and nighttime, but it still is a lot more work, though it is going well. Let's pause for a second and talk about the pause menu. Okay, I know that one wasn't as good as the first intro joke, but so for the new pause menu, I have all the options show up right when you pause the game instead of having an options tab like how I had in the previous one. And this is good because having a menu inside of a menu and just more menus inside of more menus kind of gets a little bit hard to manage for players, so keeping it as small as possible but still organized is important. Speaking of making stuff more complicated than it has to be, the old UI kind of tried to pull all the icons and stats into a different menu, which is a little bit awkward to program. So for this new UI, I just made it so that it literally slashes on top of the screen, and it's transparent so you can still see your stats when you pause the game. As for the stats UI itself, it kind of has a lot of stuff going on with it, so just talking about its position on the screen for now. I placed it based on a thing called the rule of thirds, which is a kind of art technique type of thing. In short, it just means your eyes like where it's placed on the screen. But in case your eyes don't like where it is, I guess you can just move it around wherever you want. I don't remember programming that. No. In all seriousness, I did actually want this to be a feature because I don't remember quite where I heard it from, but I remember someone was talking about the fact that for some games they don't always account for people who have trouble seeing out of one eye, and I think that being able to move the stat UI is pretty important for inclusivity, stuff like that. I do plan to also make it so you can move other things too, such as the pause screen where the text is, as well as the camera itself. But I'm not that fast of a programmer, so I'll still have to work on it. For talking about what's inside the UI itself, I designed it around being placed within your peripheral so you don't actively have to look down, but you can still be able to see your stats. and part of the reason why this works is because of the color choice. The main game over conditions for Trix are losing all your health and running out of time, so I made the in-game day a bright pink color and your health bar a turquoise color that becomes darker when you lose health. Both of these stand out against the white background of the UI and look pretty good in grayscale too, so they work. I don't really know how to transition to this last thing, but I also kind of changed up the dark zoom effect and added confetti when you land a KO against the enemy. Yeah. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Kind of surprised this devlog was a little bit shorter than some of my other ones, but I think I know why, and it's because I scripted it more, so there wasn't all this extra fluff and descriptions about all the intricacies or whatever I was adding into the game. I don't believe I said it on here, but I do have some other social media platforms where I can post a little bit more frequently than here on YouTube, but I do get it if people don't want to go on there because stuff like Twitter is really only funny when they announce a Nickelodeon fighting game. So yeah, but if you do want to look into a little bit more frequent stuff that I have for the game, I do have those, which I should have linked in the description. Yeah, there's not really too much to say for this conclusion bit. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day.